we learned on the stoop with Tony. Like we learned outside when he would smoke a cigarette. I didn't learn during mixing with Tony. I'd learn after he'd be like, yo, you see what I did back there? I'd be like, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Why did you do that? Why did you split the bass like that? He's like, well, it's like I learned this from Bob Power and like I did this thing. And like, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like so-and-so used to do this. Like that's when the learning, not when I watched him split the bass.
You could learn a thing, but you could also learn to be more confident. And I wonder like how much of the progress is attributed to either.
This song gets better and better each time.
We are now live.
We didn't spoil
Paratrooper.
anything.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
I was just going to say that there was a family member who shall remain nameless who decided after watching 4 seasons of Breaking Bad that they would just Wikipedia the 5th season. And I don't know.
Not a bad idea.
No, that is literally the worst idea. There has never been a worse idea in the history of humanity. To take 4 seasons of Breaking Bad magic, joy, art, and then just fucking wiki the 5th season. Be like, oh, okay, I guess this happened.
Yeah, was 5th the final season?
Whatever, it was the final season. It was just,
Incorrect idea.
We never really recovered from it, honestly.
There are bad ideas. That's one of them.
Is that the future of television watching?
I hope not.
Yeah.
Well, I think the future of television watching is the now self-proclaimed ambient TV series.
It's so grim.
Yeah, it's so grim. The idea that a TV show is created to go on social media during.
As a backdrop for your device activities.
Yes. So wait, is that going to happen with music? Is Muzak going to come back around? Should we be pivoting
There's ambient
into
music.
There's ambient music, but is it created for the sole purpose of
devising?
Devising. That's not
my new record.
Explosions in the Sky did not have that
is
in
it
mind.
Inevitable? I mean, if all the writers and the producers and the mixers are on their phones all the time, are we getting it already? Honestly,
I don't disagree.
Genuine question.
There's a lot there. There's a lot to work.
There's something to be said about Netflix acknowledging kind of the current and sort of attaching onto it. However, this current is kind of not one I support. Though, speaking of currents, we're kind of looking at the weekly trend of people responding, hey, I want to listen to the podcast. And we decided, why not just make a group chat for everyone that we could drop in the link and share it with all of you guys. So we did. So if you've been invited to it, you're one of the 30 people they allow us to invite. Thanks, Instagram.
What's the magic number from the original meetups up here?
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we'll rotate it so that everyone can get a chance to listen or something like that. But it's just our way of kind of giving back and, seeing where the energy is, like we talked about last time.
Yeah, we're getting closer to involving people in the conversation.
Yeah. You guys want to talk about last time for a little bit?
I'd love to.
Yeah. For a minute, for sure.
I had a great time.
Our first interview.
How long do we have, Rory?
No, I mean, I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be the whole thing, but I think we learned a lot, and it was our 21st episode, and our first guest, not guest because we're not doing interviews, the first person who came to join our conversation, and it was remarkable. Yeah, John, what do you have? Ryan is your old friend and your client.
He exceeded the no expectations that I had of the conversation.
You caught yourself.
He exceeded all the expectations I didn't have.
Thank you. That's what I meant to say. I'm a little off tonight based on emotional shifts in perspective of life. But yeah, exactly that. I had a great time. I actually really enjoyed Spider and Rory kind of leading the ship on that conversation and really teasing out some juicy parts of Ryan's position on the writing room and what it means to collaborate specifically in the city of Los Angeles. As I know a lot of listeners are either in or wondering what it's like. I mean, it's a common topic. I mean, people come here for it, and Ryan has a really unique vantage point from being an artist and transitioning over. So I was really really kind of proud of you guys for how you got the juicy bits out of an otherwise kind of cliche topic of discussion that could have happened on any platform.
It's interesting because I remember early on talking about guests and thinking that, if we bring on someone that I know, I don't want to really talk to them.
Yeah.
I want you guys to, meet them anew and not to retread conversation that we might have had over dinner.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. I think it's an interesting, and then at several points you were able to bring stuff that only you could have brought because of either you were say something direct that I don't know him well enough to say, or you had a story or a memory or an experience that you could share that put a point on something. And then Michael just sort of parachuted in with the
paratrooper.
Yeah, with the book Managing Oneself and the sort of, it was just great. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, that thing about positioning oneself socially at work.
Yeah.
It was really powerful.
Yeah.
And about change,
right. The inevitability of change. Yeah. I mean, it was great stuff.
It's really stuck with me. I mentor this guy, Dylan, not Dylan,
not Dylan Seals.
Different Dylan. And we speak definitely every month, sometimes twice a month. And I was kind of recapping him on some of my takeaways. And one that's really stood out to me the most is like, you have a perception of people, and what success looks like and what it means. And it's like, it's become so idealized, and it's also something that's like idolized, and something people like deeply aspire towards. And, in the creative field, it's like, you're always asking, well, what comes next? So like you're this successful creative person and you're still asking that fundamental question. And that to me was like, there's no end to this. You know what I mean? There's just continual evolution of oneself and putting these challenges in front of yourself that you look to overcome. And it is an inherently creative thing to do. It forces creativity. It evokes creativity by putting a challenge in front of you. And that was like what I liked about our take on that conversation, was that it wasn't about, hey, tell us about how great success is and like tell us how awesome everything is, because I think we all knew, I certainly did, and I trust that you guys did as well. It's like, that's not where the energy is. That's not where the interesting bits are.
That's a non-starter.
Yeah. And it's a
aspects.
Stopper.
That's
like
full stop.
Hollywood, whatever.
Right.
Glitz, glamour, champagne, backstage. It's not what we are interested in.
Somebody say champagne.
And
is this going to be? Are we talking about a 2-bottle night? Are we back to that rhythm?
Ooh, I don't know if I can handle that emotionally.
Will say, if we want to define success, I'll tell you defining success. It's when you text a client the live link to the episode, and he's like, "I'm actually listening to one of your episodes while making dinner."
Oh, sick.
So like, he can't listen live because he's listening to one we've already put out. I'll take that as success tonight.
Yeah, man. Wow.
That's cool, man.
Definitely.
And shout out to Ian and Sophie. And their princess daughter who lights up my phone once a month. Ian sends me these incredible photos. So, yeah.
Another takeaway I had was, there was a moment when I was listening back and I was like, oh, you mean financially successful? Like he said successful and I said financially successful. And he's like, no, like when you achieve something that you wanted to, like with friends. And I was like, and I remember saying financially successful during the convo and was like, that's not what I meant. But it was sort of I was trying to probe at what kind of success he meant. And I think his summary of success was so great. And
like
I'm actually
when
really
the thing
excited.
you did works. It was pretty, super basic.
Yeah, it was so simple and just nice. And, it was sort of like, in the book I referenced last time, Managing Oneself, like when he says, it's about when you change, just that simplicity of a statement and how it can change your perspective or the listener's perspective. So those were my two takeaways. There were others, but
I also liked the bit that you brought up about swimming upstream and going against the current, maybe to realize that it wasn't worth it to a degree. Like it's always worth it. Obviously there's always something to be learned, but maybe that was the wrong move. Maybe let's talk personally because I can't help it because it's the only thing on my mind, but get into a relationship for a year and it doesn't work. That's a year of your life. But thinking about 40 years to come with a partner, that year is not that much. in relation to that. So thinking about a project and the ever growing life of you and your career and your trajectory, a year to try something new is actually not that long if we plan on doing what we're doing for 40, 50 years.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was an interesting thing I sat with on my second listen of it. It was like, okay, this year I'm about to start managing someone. I'm going to go back and engineer. If in 2022, none of that really made sense, I'll go back to mixing and I won't feel like I lost a year because I had that in my ear. I didn't actually know.
And you'll be a better mixer for having done it.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or a better person for having done it. A more holistic, realized version of yourself.
A better person is a better mixer.
Oh, you were saying was it worth it? It's such an interesting thing because was it worth leaving a career that was successful for me? Was it worth, and everything that came with that? It's like, well, we're here right now and people are getting value from this. So that was worth it. And so ultimately doing what I did led to another thing, which created value in the world. And that's always worth it in my opinion.
Yep.
So it's so hard to predict in the moment, especially, if we're talking about relationships or anything, like what does it mean in the moment, in the initial moment versus what does it mean long term for the individuals or for the person? Like to know if it was worth it's very hard.
Well, yes, that's something Spider and I talked a bunch about in the last couple of years because I've worked really hard for 20 years and I consider most, if I took a realistic view of it, a lot of the effort was wasted. I shouldn't have worked that hard. It didn't yield the results that I wanted. But there's a project now which is to make that work useful. I can retroactively learn from and sort of tap that resource of overwork and make it useful for me now. You don't have to consign everything from the past to sort of the waste basket. There are ways of sort of integrating it and making it, and not just in the kind of like, I fucked up, now I'm not going to fuck up. But actually, I learned a lot on all of those detours, the amount of times that a client will say, well, I've got this really weird situation where I've got this and this and this guy in this room with this thing. It's like, yeah, I've been in exactly that situation because I spent 20 years doing shit. Too much shit in too many rooms with too much gear, solving too many problems. So I can sort of use it, but instead of just continuing the same trajectory of overworking or whatever that might look like, it's actually using it in a sort of in a focused, intentional way. And that's what really, just on the way down here, I was listening to Lex interviewing a guest, maybe, no, I'll mess up the name, but Lex said in another way, the thing that we've been sort of kicking around the last few minutes, which is information isn't enough, that making it useful to people, making it stick. If, there is no doubt that there is enough information about exercise routines and what we should be doing out in the world. And the four of us are not doing exactly what we should be doing, right? We're all in different places with it, but we're absolutely not. Access to the information isn't enough.
Yeah.
So we need people who inspire, people who make it sticky, people who understand our lives and understand, how we can fit it in around work for you, John, or kids for me, or building a business for Spider, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So there's still the need for people who are doing what we're doing, and I'm getting clearer on our project.
Yeah.
At least one aspect of it. And then there are aspects like what you were working on today, Michael, that I texted about, which I'm not clear on at all. And it's like, well, is this where we're headed? So it's a constant project to sort of integrate new opportunities, new ideas, new understandings, and still remain focused.
Can't wait for our podcast retreat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much is going to be sorted.
Who wants to talk about the podcast
you
retreat?
do.
Me?
Yeah.
You instigated it. We'll talk about it.
Okay. So
before we move forward on it, I just wanted to say something.
Yeah.
I don't want to circle back later. Basically, John and I were talking about this concept today about the knowledge versus the learning. It's a distinction that I've been trying to draw to as many people that mention knowledge and learning, or maybe just knowledge.
Knowledge and understanding.
Yeah.
The comprehension of said knowledge.
Exactly. So that distinction between you have knowledge or you have information or you just have data, right? Those things aren't even the same, those three things, but they're on one side of the fence of like just info gathering. And you could have gathered and packaged even a lot of good information, but it doesn't mean comprehension. It doesn't mean that it's even learned. You could comprehend and not learn. So, I think often with the information age, there's so much info and data that you can turn into information, but there's less comprehension and learning and integration. And I feel like the integration is part of the learning process, I want
to maybe put a point on this, the distinction, because learning is a neurological process. It sounds to me like what you're talking about is understanding. Like it's knowledge and data and information is collected, but how does it relate?
Yeah.
Like, how do I understand this scientific study? Like, what does this mean? Like, there's meaning and understanding and all that.
How can I apply it?
And so, like, if you're memorizing knowledge, that's a kind of learning. Like, that's a neurological process. So learning seems like it is a part of all of these things. It's just like the underlying brain that is able to connect and adapt. Is that what the distinction is about understanding, about meaning?
Yeah, it is a process of, and I like this conversation because people are probably listening to us, gathering information, gathering ideas, and I've just been thinking about the integration part. So yeah, the learning process does require gathering, but ends with this integration into oneself, which comes through practice, comes through connecting the dots as part of learning and then practicing. And that's where you're kind of solidifying the learned thing. Let
me talk real life example, because this is actually really interesting, because I'm attempting to comprehend was the word I would use, or I guess understand what I learned when kind of trying to understand the Platonian reason versus, or desire versus reason, right? Like, I know what that means. Like, I know what both of those words mean. I understand the point of view that he miraculously came up with and realized, like, what the human brain is actually trying to do, right? So we're discerning emotion from reason, and I can sit with this, but during an emotional traumatic period of a breakup or a heartbreak or something, I'm like, well, I still really desire this human, but within reason and my ability to reason, I know this is not right. It doesn't make the cut clean. It doesn't make this able to be, I haven't learned anything. I don't really understand it yet, but I fundamentally know the difference between the two words and how to make them come to my new truth or whatever I sit in. But I haven't comprehended that relationship between those words yet. But I've learned it, but I've already knew it.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's a lot of words.
Well, in the book, she goes on to take it all apart. But anyway,
yes.
that's
I know.
Separate thing.
No. Well, she takes it apart in the second. I'm already at the second lesson.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. This is Lisa Feldman Barrett for 7.5 Ways the Brain Works.
7.5 Lessons about the brain. Yeah.
Wait. I mean, please feel free to.
No, I need to read that book more than once, and I'm not finished it yet.
But that's a known concept, right? That's a known point of view about the brain. That's not. I mean, that's in the book, but that's a.
Yeah.
He arrived at that, and we know that about the brain. Like, I've heard that before reading the book.
We think that about the brain. I think what we know now is more advanced,
complex.
But that's subtle. It doesn't separate. I don't want to detract from your point, because the point you're making is that you're a real life example of understanding a principle, but not yet being able to integrate it and live it.
Yes, that's what I was pointing at.
I think about areas of my life where there are areas of my life where if you said to me, last night, I wanted to spend some time with my wife, and it was like, we are going to ask the kids to set up a little date night for us and go to bed early, do a good bedtime. We're going to watch a documentary. So I went to Rotten Tomatoes, Googled top 10 documentaries, some whatever phrase you would Google, and I'd seen a bunch but hadn't seen some, and looked at the trailers and picked 5 to say, hey, we should do this. There are other areas of my life, if you said to me, we should just find the top 10 list of EQs. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like, I'm going to put my hands on these things. I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to use them. I'm going to understand them. I'm going to meet the guys who designed them. Like, I'm not using a top 10 list for certain aspects of my life. For other aspects, I want a cheat sheet. And ultimately, there are things that, there are things I feel that each of us can bring where we've done the first principles deep dive or have spent the time in the trenches trying to understand something. And I don't want to bring, top 10 EQ tips to the audience.
No.
But I do think that we can offer our experience. But it's way more important to me that we offer it in a way that sticks or that integrates, that they can, I would rather say one thing that they remember, that a listener remembers and affects how they understand music or their workflow than 10 useful things that are not. The experience this week was the Andrew Huberman podcast that I'm super into this guy. Heard him on Lex first. He's a Stanford neuroscientist and psychedelics researcher. He's an amazing dude. And I listened to his own podcast, and I think we talked about it the other day, Spider. It's brilliant, but it's just a classic fire hose of information from a guy who knows a ton of stuff. And despite the fact that there's way more information in his solo episode than there is in his conversation with Lex, I retained way more from the conversation with Lex because Lex was the proxy for me.
Yes.
There was a rhythm to the conversation. They sped up, they slowed down.
Interactivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if it's like you say, it's like a virtual interactivity. Yeah.
And
vicarious.
There was intensity of complex ideas, and then a break with humor. Lex would restate something complicated with a metaphor, an analogy that I could connect to, and consequently, despite the fact that it was way less information dense, I took more from it, and that's something I think I aspire to.
It's like a good pop song, It's like a good poem. It's like you can read between the lines if you want, but there's also on the surface there's something there to take away right away.
Yeah.
Unlike Tenet.
I think context is key.
Yeah.
In that, I think if you're taking a university level course, then which really means in an abstract sense is that you have a guide for a long period of time to understand a specialty of some sort. Then, in that context, a complex set of ideas that slowly over time can be interconnected and developed makes sense. But I think depending on the form that the information is presented inside of, like the medium is the message, as they say, then it's going to affect how potent that information can be, how effective it can be.
And the reality is different people, this connecting, ideas landing and connecting for me is really important. For other people, there are people for whom the fire hose of information is great. They just like, got it. Other people who need to see it, who need to watch it or see a diagram. Other people who need to put their hands on it. Like my daughter Mirabelle, she needs to. It needs to be 3-dimensional. Ideas exist in her brain in a very 3-dimensional kind of physical way. She wants to put her hands on things. She describes ideas using her hands in 3 dimensions. Even ideas that are not 3-dimensional, she'll.
So Italian of her.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, she's from Nanjing, China, but maybe who knows?
Who knows?
So I don't want to. I don't want to speak for how everyone can learn. I do know that if I've got something to offer, it's probably in making ideas useful in that way. So and then that means that there's only a niche audience for my particular, but you're different, and Spider's different again with overlap with me. John's different again, so that's why there's
knowledge and understanding in a digestible format. Sticky, transferable,
with a healthy sort of context of passion and
robust challenge. And all this.
And I think it was one. My takeaway from last week was how interesting it was to have an interview instead of one host and 4 panelists. We had 4 hosts and 1 guest. Again, we're not using the guest interview sort of terminology, but the idea that you would have a podcast where 4 people interview one person or converse with one person, it's odd. and it worked really, really well. And so many times last week I had Rhinus talking about something and I knew where I wanted to take the conversation, and one of you guys took it somewhere better.
Well, or somewhere
Or
else.
different.
Yeah, but
That's the fun.
But I mean, it's better because it surprised me. I didn't get to own it or control it. It was a constant sort of like, oh, what, where, how? That's what you got out of what he said.
But that's also what Ryan would do, right?
Of course.
Ryan would take a question and answer it better than the question.
I mean, it worked out exactly the way we modeled it, like after a band. I mean, we adapted, the four of us, we just like adapted and, jumped in, jumped out.
Yeah.
I like this multimodal way of presenting information, and in a way it's interesting because that is very much why we chose the four of us to make this podcast, and why even the logo has the four circles, you know what I mean? It's like, it's this idea of there are so many different ways of seeing things. How can we represent that as well as we can? And learning is no different, right? People learn with humor. People learn by explaining things. I mean, there's endless ways. I was in education for a while, and it always, every layer, you just learn more and more about learning itself. It's kind of a fascinating thing.
I thought I was only part of this because of my overuse of pomegranate molasses.
Yeah, I mean, it brings all the boys to the yard.
That was the primary reason we got you involved. But it's changed.
It's
honestly.
a
It's evolved since.
I'm charred, blackened.
It surprised all of us.
molasses.
But
You've proven to be a good guest on our show.
Speaking of learning, Michael, you're out there in Nashville. What have you learned this week?
Here's a good one. Here's a great idea that I had. I was actually very resistant to staying at Nathan's place after being at my dad's place for a while, and then my aunt's place. And I was like, maybe I just don't like being in other people's spaces, like, for long periods of time. And then that was my first thought before I broke it down further. But then I was like, well, it's just uncomfortable for me. Well, why? And then it was, well, so already you're seeing how I learn in these processes and like sort of this triangulation of things. Okay, well, why that? It's just this questioning, right? And ultimately landed at, I love being a host, and I want to make people feel comfortable in my space. And I'm like, it's like this concern for them, like that, like they're concerned for me. You know what I mean? I don't want to like step on people's toes. I don't want to get in the way, You don't
want to be a burden.
Yeah. And that's a whole thing. But so to me, that was a big part of that was a big thing I learned this week, that I just have a general discomfort with it. I didn't even really know that I had that, because I'm not like staying at people's places all the time. It's a very unique circumstance.
You understand the regularity of people's routines, and you don't want to disrupt it.
It's their own process, right?
Yeah.
And so I drop myself into the process. How do I affect it?
The thing about that is the people that have that at their best and do it, and the people that you hang out with and respect and surround yourself with, know how to implement the change into it.
Flexible.
They're flexible, and
process.
when they're offering it, they're preparing themselves for it.
They might even enjoy it.
They most likely.
I don't want to speak for anyone, but they might even enjoy having you around.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
So you should learn. You should learn that right now.
right. No, and
Nathan's happy to have you. I know that for a fact.
Like, I was saying like, yeah, maybe I won't do it, and then I'm really glad I did. It's already been great in so many different ways. So yeah, it was really a recognition of, hey, there's this just thing that you have in your head that's like this avoidance of being hosted, because I'm so often hosting, and then just falling into it and saying, I'm going to try to appreciate it this go around, take 3 of it? You know what I mean? How could I really, really appreciate it? What are the things that I enjoy about being hosted and being the guest, and integrating those things? And one of those is just like really trying to understand the people that are hosting me and like helping them understand themselves. I love that. I love asking questions and understanding people and seeing how people do things.
Playing with their
awesome.
dogs.
Playing with the dogs was so fun.
I mean, imagine yourself as a new songwriter, right? Like going into a room to a producer that it's their studio, it's their home studio. That producer is not considering the environment of the of the creative crew that's coming in to work. Like, to feel burdened every time you go to a new space is probably inhibiting the connection that is possible between everyone there, right? That's
agreed.
I've been kind of thinking today to distract. Thinking a lot of things. Phoebe Bridgers' album really getting me through a bunch right now.
I saw that on your Instagram story. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it.
Whole album.
No.
Twice through today.
Do it. Headlong. Head first.
But she dropped a bar. I don't remember the context of the bar, but I think about this all the time in regards to what you were talking about hosting. You love hosting. I mean, the whole conversation podcast started from me deciding to host an event is hiding in plain sight. It's like, I love to hide in plain sight. I love hosting. I love running the session because everyone else gets to do them and I just get to pretend like I'm running it.
And I love not giving you an opportunity to. That's one of my favorite things to do with you.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's just calling you on that and making you show up. I love it.
I don't want to show up. I love it. Being here is enough.
I love it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite things about you right now. It's just and how you've reciprocated.
Wow.
So
I got to think a lot about that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, I think it's great
because you get to Michael and Ryan were talking about it last week, the introvert extrovert concepts. I just get to be seemingly an extrovert by hosting, but I'm dead for 3 days after, but I get to come off like I'm having a blast, and really I'm like terrified that someone going to break my new sofa, like you're going to break a Zalto, like what's going to happen. I'm actually not thinking that.
Are you practicing so it gets more comfortable?
Well, yeah, I think by the last conversation, it was just like all fun, but I had to go outside before hosting, right? Because we had the dinner part and then we had like a 15-minute, like put the place together for the conversation. While everyone did that, I snuck outside and I did a 15-minute meditation outside where I went through a couple of notes, as the interviewer of, like, for example, you two for Unfuck, Spider and Rory. When I did Tony, like I was in charge of interviewing. So that was another pressure added in that night but that was me running away from it all and hiding. And it was really I know I heard that line in the I think it's in Chinese Satellites. Love that record. Or it's in Halloween. Those two are just like, we can be anything we want on Halloween. It's like, I hate that holiday. It's my least favorite of any of the hallmarking that goes on in life. But that line and that, like, it's so true, and it's most true in LA because like everyone already isn't who
all
they
the makeup
say.
departments are here.
Potentially that, but on a deeper level, it's like so many people are, for better or for worse, faking it till they make it. I mean, I've had like really successful.
Freudian.
Really, wow, that's
Slip like
deep.
Freudian.
That's deep. Yeah, no, MF Doom, R.I.P. I've had many successful friends tell me that they do that intentionally, and these are good people too. And it's like, this is what people do. So on Halloween, it's 10x. It's just like, I'm gonna also be this person, right? And so that lyric really hit me because, like, for the last leg of this, let's just pretend everything's okay and like let's get through this day. And like, I don't know, I just did that for December. I really tried.
Comfort in spaces, it's a thing.
It is a thing. And you know what? You said the word practice, and that's exactly what I said to myself when I'm like, I'm showing up here because I want to. I really do at my core. I haven't developed the skill. And the only way to do it, like I said earlier, is to integrate it somehow and learn from what you do know. Take existing knowledge and build new knowledge with it. And, I'm enjoying this more than, for other reasons, obviously, but I'm enjoying this more than any of the other places I've stayed thus far. Not that they were better or worse. It's just I'm learning more as I go.
Yeah.
I'm
Sorry, I cut you off,
there are,
Spider.
well, no, you didn't really. But, if there are cultural norms around this sort of thing, like hosting and being a guest in someone's home, that sort of thing, extended stay. But part of it can be like, do you trust people? Do you trust people to say what they mean? So like, if you're like, make yourself at home, if people are talking to you, do you trust them? You're like, do they really mean what they say? I think it's, there's a certain caution that I know I've developed socially where I can be overly careful, and that's a way of wording it, but it's also not trusting the people to say what they mean, and not trusting that people can say it's enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's time to go.
I was raised to not open my friends' refrigerators.
Sure.
Like, I went to a lot of.
It's a good rule.
That's a good rule. My mom taught me that. But in my house, like, I want y'all to go into the refrigerator, like mi casa, su casa. Just go in and take a Topo Chico, whatever. Like, there's just no doubt in my mind that if that happened, if you just went over and heard the refrigerator door open and close, not 1 ounce of me says that was rude. Now, I was raised that way, but it's a practice in completely opening up to a new level of family, to these concentric circles of family that we talk in this community. It's really polite on those conversations at the gift shop nights when an engineer that I haven't met yet says, hey, like, we're out of wine over here. Like, what's cool to open? That's thoughtful. But I want to just say that everything is, right. That's the host. That's the Italian grandmother. Like, the Turkish grandma in me is like, whatever, if it's out there, if it's in sight, take it, and I really love that. It's like, come over to a studio, you should be able to plug in a synth, you should to an amp and press play and just like start hearing things like that disconnection in the creative process. That's the producer or the studio owner or manager's job to like, to open the floodgates for creativity to come. So, right. So to me, like, I'm hearing us talk about the house, but I'm also like, how do we equate that to a studio?
Yeah. Studios can be designed and laid out to encourage this. This is something we do a lot. And it's something, I on my after dinner drinks on Monday, I went live and talked to old friend OJ, who was interning with Chris Tabron at Red Bull Studios, New York, bunch of years ago. And it reminded me, and it's coming to mind now, because the way Chris Tabron laid out that studio and the way he maintained it, it was just always so welcoming. Like, every time you went to the live room, you picked up something.
Yeah.
It was just that when you create this sort of invitation to play in a space, if you're thinking like a producer.
Yeah. Well, if you're trying to capture the moment, the magic in the moment, of course.
Yeah, and you just want more moments.
Yeah.
You want the freedom, that creative freedom.
Yeah. I'm struck listening to what you're all saying, that this is just another one of those tensions that I think we imagine we'll fix it or sort it or get to the end of it. And to me, it's like there's a constant tension between leaning into things you're not good at, like maybe hosting. At one point, you weren't good at hosting and you wanted to be good at hosting, and you lean into that, and also accepting who you are, which is an introvert.
Yeah.
And there will never, I hope for me, on the things that, where there are two dimensions like that or two extremes, I hope there's never an end to it, that I'm always somewhere. There's always a tension until the day I die. I don't want, I have a family member who's very like me, and in all the ways that he's like me, he annoys the fuck out of me because it's just me talking to me, and I'm like, you're really fucking annoying when you say that. It's like, it's me. But one of the things he said to me one time was, this is just who I am. Oof. Like, this is just who I am. And to me, immediately, the counter is like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, be better. No, actually, don't be better. Want to be better. I don't care if you are better. But there is actually a case to be made for this is who I am.
Yeah.
And there's a case to be made for the struggle to be better or someone you're not yet. But I think the next level beyond that is sort of accepting that you'll never be I don't ever want to land on one of those.
Yeah.
I want to be in the space between them. And at different points, you know, if I've got headroom, maybe I throw myself into being better. If I'm fighting illness, or, you know, I've lost my job, or whatever, the struggles life throws at people, maybe I want to accept who I am for a minute, or be closer to that end, but never land on one or the other. I think this is something that I've really seen, and I've touched on it several times. You know, and it's something I want to explore. I imagine that one day I'll have like a radio show or something that goes back to Ireland, or a podcast that people in Ireland hear about my experience here. And one of the big things is the idea in America that things are perfectible, when often they're just not. Not often, almost always they're not.
There's no such thing.
And I think this is an example of that. It's like, there's sometimes you need to, you know, I don't think you are an introvert in the purest sense, but there's sometimes you need to be an introvert and accept it and own it and protect it. And there's sometimes you need to lean into, you know, an audience of 2,000 people that's coming your way when we do our live events.
Well, I had a very, on that note, I had a really specific occurrence on, it was Christmas, and I consider myself a pretty good host at this point. I've been practicing, like Michael's talking about. I definitely practice. In fact, I've even set up a boundary in my kitchen. I installed a brand new kitchen with an island in the middle to separate people coming into my zone. Like, if you come over there, you're just in my way, right? So there's a de facto analog piece of
the electric
equipment.
fence was too much. And you know it. You knew that.
But here I am serving a 10-course dinner for Christmas for 5 people, right? By myself, really. And I don't serve the oldest person in the room, who happened to be a woman as well. I made a mistake, and I didn't. Traditionally, you serve the elder in the room first.
See, I wouldn't have known that.
And I made a big mistake.
I would not have known that.
Well, you don't watch Downton Abbey.
I did.
You did?
But I didn't integrate the knowledge.
Look, this is something that I'm very, very... And here, let's add one more layer to it. The day before, I was looking up Turkish coffee recipes and kind of how to master the Turkish coffee, because I love Turkish coffee, and Michael and I went to Istanbul, and we've tasted about, and I'm learning how to make it. And the first paragraph, before even getting to the recipe, is rule number 1 of Turkish coffee is serve it to the oldest person in the room first. The day before Christmas, on Christmas Eve, I'm researching this, right? So comes to that night, and I don't. Epic fail. I am not a good host, right? So there's no perfection level. I thought I was good, then I thought I sucked, right? There's just this constant
vacillating,
you know,
back and forth.
I mean, that was a big fuck up to me, to be honest. I was like, I couldn't.
Well, we haven't forgotten the salmon. I mean, for, you know.
Oh, the overcooked salmon?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know,
I don't know which is worse, to be honest, at this point.
Have you cooked salmon since?
Yeah, well.
So you didn't give up on
No,
it?
I didn't give up on salmon.
Nice. Good.
I haven't shucked another oyster since I stabbed myself in the thumb, though, 2 weeks
that's
ago.
probably wise.
Yeah.
You just might
I got to
not
get
be good at
Kevlar
that.
gloves.
No,
Maybe we should give up on
knowledge.
attention there and just accept that you're not good at it.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Shuck it your own risk.
It has me thinking, like, because everyone's been so isolated and quarantined and haven't had people in their space, there's going to be a moment, or I mean many moments, but a moment for the individual where they're like welcoming people into their space for the first time again. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about as you guys were talking. It's like, oh man. And it's almost an opportunity to, I was thinking about the idea of this pendulum swinging in psychology, where they've found typically when someone's identified to be extreme on one side or the other, they kind of typically, by all data that they have at the moment, will swing to the opposite end instead of leveling first, to eventually either swing to the back to where they were and then finally level out. So it'll be interesting. And this relates to Rory's point about, you know, that you aren't fixed. You are on this pendulum of so many different attributes. But now you're welcoming someone into your house for the first time, your home, your studio, your apartment, your car, you know, and it's an opportunity to kind of figure out, how do you want to show up again in this world? Like, you know, where are you at? To bring the topic of learning into it, you know, what have you learned in this time that you value about the human connection? It's definitely been on my mind a lot.
Big reset button, big pause. Yeah.
Big pause.
Big pause energy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've spent a lot of time this year kind of recalibrating my space to fit my home living aesthetic versus the studio aesthetic, and that's going to be an interesting kind of experience, bringing clients back into the studio and how they react to that shift. Like the drum room's down, it's a little bit less of a studio, and there's a studio area, but the studio is not all encompassing as it used to be. So for people that have been here prior to COVID-19, there's going to be either an excitement or wait, this doesn't feel, I can't imagine what people are going to feel coming back upstairs after having been in a while. I hope it's met with excitement because I'm excited about it, but who knows?
Yeah. I'm even thinking, how do you show up? Like not only your space, but then also you in the space and having other people in the space,
filled with excitement and energy. And honestly,
so excited.
So excited. I can't think of anything more. I mean, as we get deeper and deeper into podcast episodes, and like we briefly touched on the idea of a desert retreat for us to kind of wrap our heads around what the next year looks like. I'm excited for whenever we get to do our first conversations at the gift shop again, like back and do a live event where it also is a podcast episode, right? It will still be one, but it's kind of back to normal.
Exciting.
It's so exciting, but maybe it's not a monthly event, right? Maybe the podcast still is in the foreground, but we do bigger events, like maybe there's a place to grow the initial idea now with this and a larger community. And just that excites me more than any part of the space sharing.
Where there's community, there's possibility.
Yeah.
That's it.
What, Michael?
I'm excited to see how we could support the community. Can we host this in another venue, help a restaurant, help a venue, help a space that needs the help, especially after this reopening of America, really. That's exciting too. It's like, how do we integrate within the culture, within our environment as well? I'm thinking like
a lot of ideas.
Yeah. I know the brain starts turning. Of course, that's all we want to do. I can think of 10 places.
A meeting all of a sudden.
Yeah. Let's come back to that at the desert.
I'm thinking Dodgers Stadium first, maybe.
Let's.
I think this desert retreat.
Yeah, let's pivot to Ruairi and
really.
So
let's talk about it.
The desert retreat. We talk every Wednesday, but we individually, I'm on a thread with one or all of you. We have a group thread with Dylan that we're on every day with ideas and work that we have to do for the podcast, to do with episodes and notes and posts and getting it up there and what time we're eating and et cetera, et cetera. And then we're all in individual conversations, different threads about stuff in our life and challenges and projects we're working on. You, Michael, and Spider are working on a project together at different points. We're all working on, last week, John and I were talking about clippers and his studio and different things. And Spider and I are talking about our work, obviously. And I think we're all in a pretty intense growth phase, individually and collectively. And I thought how good it would be. I searched for half an hour to find an image of something that I could send you guys to get you psyched. But I thought how good it would be if we could get away from our phones and away from the noise of our lives and just have 3 or 4 days in the desert with some food and some wine and phones off and a desert vista, a view out into infinity, the middle distance, and sort of the open space to really think about some of our ideas. And then very quickly after thinking that, I thought about how important it would be. Obviously we go there, we think about, the question that I think I posed on one of our last calls was, what's the podcast for? What are we doing? What are we really trying to do? What are our master principles? What's the primary aim? Is it 10 top tips for mixing with Jon Castelli, or is it
definitely not?
No, it's not, clearly. But that's an exaggeration or a sort of a parody.
Counterpoint.
But I'll do that. I'll talk about all the opposite things.
Sorry, it's just counterpoint, man.
Yeah, we're clear in many of the ways we don't want to be. Like we talked about talking with Ryan last week, we've zero interest in the money, the fame, the 80,000 people, the celebrity. Spider's question about playing to a big audience was, the feedback you get about your songs. It's like, it's something that someone who plays to 7 people can use. Mm-hmm. You don't need to play to 80,000 people. So that's sort of very telling about our intuitions. But I want to get, and I think you guys too want to get clearer and clearer and clearer about what we're about, so that we can hold ideas and initiatives up against a set of master principles. They'll evolve, clearly. We're not going to set them in stone. But I thought how great it would be to go and spend the time to really dig in and sort of grasp the nettles, the things that are difficult, that are challenging, and spend the time, and then do some recording, do some video. We sort of half jokingly talked about the idea of waking, meditating for an hour, going walking in the desert for an hour, not speaking, and then just coming back, pressing record and getting on mic.
I don't think that's a joke. I think we need to do it.
No, I think
that's a necessity.
I already have the outfit.
Yeah. Of course you do. Spider's got the Pinterest board laid out.
Wait, Spider, can you make outfits for uniforms for all of us?
Yeah.
I can go full Zissou on this trip.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Full Steve Zissou.
Please, I'm down.
Now I'm going.
I got a headband. I'm ready. Yeah. I got a couple.
But in different ways, there isn't we talk about modeling behavior, and that's something that's sort of a phrase that I use a lot because of being a parent. You don't tell kids what to do, you model it. They won't do what you say. They'll do what you do, right? And this podcast, there isn't really a model for it, the way that we're doing it. There are things like it in other, there's bits of Lex in here, there's bits of Sam in here, there's bits of Joe in here, and not sort of equating us with them, but we're stealing ideas from lots of good places, as we should. But it's important to me that, can everyone take their band or their co-writers and go to the desert? If you live on the East Coast right now and it's snowy and you work at Starbucks and you mix or write beats 2 nights a week with your friend, maybe you guys go and get lunch someday. Yeah. Just a long lunch on a Saturday or whatever. It isn't that everyone has to do this thing, but the idea that you can take some extra time to dive deep and to sort of re-up and level up the commitment to the project. Especially because you've been on the road, Michael. That's been on my mind. Yeah. It's kind of like, wait a second, is he in? What's he doing over there? I want to make sure that that you're, how much we need you. That this table with 3 legs falls over. It's not designed for that. You know what I mean? So bringing you back from your road trip and re-upping, discovering these values, these master principles, whatever you want to call them. That's what I had in mind, and mostly I just wanted to drop it on the thread and watch you guys light up.
I'm already on it. I can't wait to go.
That was what I was most excited about. Yeah. And we're going to do with my wife and kids. We're going to do a separate little vacation because we haven't really had a vacation in a long time. The last real vacation I had was 10 years ago, before the kids came home. Where we actually went and spent a week doing nothing.
You got to go do that.
Yeah.
If anyone knows of a place for rent that's comfortable and wild, in the desert,
we want something on the edge of the park or on the edge of a vista.
Comfortable for 6 grown men.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff out there is like clearly made for Coachella, like pool party type things, and that's not what we're looking for.
The grill, the stars, fire outside.
Yeah, I'm on it, guys. I'm on it. But if someone throws,
So anyway, that was what I had in mind with the desert. So I think you guys were into it. So we're going to do it and we're going to share it, and I'm excited about that process.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like the start of ritual or tradition or something. I mean, as soon as we said desert retreat, it was like, inaugural desert retreat. It just starts to become this rhythm that we're all looking for, where there are sort of high points and peak points in the calendar for the year.
The ambition is that it's something that next year that 50 people will come with us to some place. What that place is.
Or we do a conversation summer camp, like a week-long thing, or, I think there's just so much. That's what I was saying before about where there's community, there's possibility. There's just so much you can do. you know.
And talking, you know, we were out doing a studio the other day, and Anthony, our client, mastering engineer, label owner, he doesn't work in music full time, and he's like, that would be so. We were telling him about the retreat and the idea that it will become something that more and more people come on with us, and he was like, that would be so good for me because I'm not doing this full time. I'm not as connected with other people as I would like to be. So the opportunity to meet other people who are doing it full time, or other people like me who are passionate, but it isn't their main gig yet.
I mean, that's what the night was up here. People that knew each other through Instagram, or they were on email with each other. They're sharing credits on the same records. Like, they never met each other, and they're sharing a meal. What better way to connect all cultures, everyone, like through a meal? It's just, there's nothing like it. That's what creates community. It was based around food. It was where was the rice? Like, who found the rice, and then everyone came and ate it? Who found the meat? Like, all this. It's just so primal. It's what we're all designed for. And, you know, it made so much sense the first time. I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone came up to me and was like, yo, is that? And I was like, yeah, that's that. Oh, just mix that record. That like, just go talk to him. You know, it's like, it's not that big of a deal, right? Up here, it's not that big of a deal because I wouldn't invite someone, or we wouldn't invite someone, you know, to this space that wouldn't be open to that. Yeah, you know, it just wouldn't happen. So that was the first, you know, the first night we did that. It was we need to continue this, you know. And then the first time we did the podcast recording, we need to continue this. Like, this was the line said, and now
I already feel that way about the retreat.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm exactly where I'm going with it. So now that we have this retreat, we're gonna have to keep doing it but we needed a new jumping off point of just. Well, you look like you got something to say.
We've already got someone sent us a link to a house.
Oh, really?
Thank you.
What do we got?
How's it look?
It looks beautiful right now. I mean, it's just big, badass house. Thank you,
Send
Anthony.
it to the group, please.
Yeah.
Sick.
That's
I love
fine.
that. I love that.
Anthony, client Anthony?
Anthony Central, Anthony Puglisi.
We'll have to get him to put the mezcal together for the
Yeah,
trip.
definitely had some
Dude is really dialed in.
Oh, word.
way
Awesome.
dialed in.
Yeah, way dialed in to
He's already stayed there so tight, and
to
he's
the
on the
Pujol,
mezcal
to the
gig already.
Pujol
Yeah.
mezcal scene.
Can we not say Pujol? It's supposed to go on my birthday. Damn.
You still can.
Ooh.
The world has not stopped, my friend.
That's true. Okay, cool.
I'm looking at my
That
podcast.
mole is still going.
It's still flowing. It's flowing whether you're there or not.
That's hilarious.
I'm looking at my podcast notes, and I can't remember which are things I've copied from elsewhere and which are things I've written.
Right.
And some of them are clever, and some of them are not. So I can kind of,
Integration.
you know, yeah. Well, there's integration, or there's a big mess.
Well.
you know, I should probably title things. I've got your notes in the middle that you texted me the other day, Spider, and photos of pages of books. Yeah.
So you guys are reading the same book right now, the three of you?
Two of us.
Two of us.
Yeah, right now. Spider gave it to me for Christmas, and John bought it when we talked about it.
Yeah.
2
lessons
Just ordered a copy for Nathan and I.
Nice.
Ordered 2.
You know, it's designed to be read easily. She says, like, kind of, you know, on the beach or on a subway stop, or just like bits by bits. It's an essay. You know, it's 7.5 essays. It's like, it's breezy. I'm trying to understand this comprehension learning concept that we were talking about in the beginning, and I'm reading 1 per day because I don't comprehend very well. I have to usually read a chapter a few times to actually understand what was in there. So I'm reading it really slowly, but you can read it in 1 sitting, I bet. But so I'm practicing that way. Not good at comprehension. Trying to get better at it.
I'm curious, have you guys ever done any summits or retreats or anything like that? Or are you guys bringing in any mental models of what it could be?
I mean, as a kid.
The closest I've done is that, you know, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, that Byron Katie event, you know, 3-day, she calls it New Year's cleanse kind of, but it's basically a kind of a workshop with a couple of 100 people, maybe 150 people in a room, but nothing really like this that I can, I mean, probably going and rehearsing with a band someplace is as close as I would have come.
But what constitutes a retreat? I mean, I went away once a month for 3 or 4 day weekend this year during the summer, and I felt like it was a retreat. And I came back and was inspired to recreate. Like, what is a retreat?
Well, we would say, I mean, to me,
Like, I meditated every day. hiked.
That sounds like a vacation.
Is that a vacation?
A rest from life. I think a retreat, there's a commitment to do some work too. It's not an escape. It's
typically purpose.
Is it? Okay, cool.
And it's groups.
I think so. Yeah, that's my understanding.
That's how I think about it.
Got it.
Yeah.
You, Spider, you said you've done some with.
Well, I mean, in the
life?
religious context, there was summer camps. There was all kinds of this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like 5-day ski retreats up in the near the Adirondacks. Yeah, that was just an ongoing fact of life. I mean, there was a summer camp we all went to that was in the Pine Barrens in southern New Jersey, which is where like my family's from for a couple hundred years. I don't know. It's a bunch of fucking kids running around in the woods.
More like summer camp type stuff.
Drinking Kool-Aid and shit in the 80s.
Yeah.
And like it was...
you weren't committed to a shared project.
Fundamentalist. It was all church all the time and activities.
What about it? I mean, I haven't had that experience. So what about it in terms of, we're talking about learning and data and information and integration?
Well, yeah, man. It's very similar to the day in and day out lifestyle of working in Tony Maserati's team scenario. And what, the thing that we talk about was so interesting during that period is like where we thought the learning was taking place. It was like not when the mixing was happening. It was like the group lunch and the conversation and the breaks, the cigar breaks, the fucking ear breaks. It was all the interaction. And so like, it's really just the going through the routine of daily life with people where that stuff is happening and not, it's like the way kids or like the percentage of communication that is actual word choice compared to body language and tone and melody and all the other things, right? There's all this stuff going on, stuff that you learn from a teacher outside of the lecture part, where they're just putting, trying to transfer perspective and knowledge into your brain. There's discussion, there's like interaction, there's like, and there's like the rhythm to it. I just think there's something about susceptibility and the ability to learn in that's highly socially motivated, that's driven by social forces. And so, when I think about those summer camps, especially the bonding that would take place in that sort of atmosphere, it's lighter than at home. There isn't the same sort of like discipline scenario. You sort of have more freedom. You're away from your mom and dad. You're like in a place. There's a bunch of peers, and I think the social bonding that takes place in a situation like that's really powerful. For some people, it's a lifetime. I mean, for me, it wasn't really the culture that I stayed with. I don't have people in my life from that time other than like close family. But, I think in a lot of cases, that is how you build really powerful relationships, putting people in real life scenarios together.
Well, I imagine in a retreat, a format like this, if it was 6 of us, right? There's no way not to show up. So we're all going to hold each other accountable. Like if I don't want to do something one day and I'm at home, I could just stay home and just ghost y'all. But there, you're going to be like, knock on the door, like, yo, we're doing this thing. We said we're going to do.
Bro.
Yeah. So the being held accountable to work and to be focused on a joint universal outcome, which is like what we all talk about anyway. Like we should be doing that endlessly anyway. That's how outcomes and success happen, but or alignment happens. But this is a forced version of that. in a a comfortable zone. If I'm looking at this house, it looks really comfortable, but it's not our comfort zone. It's none of our comfort zone. So there's no the host factor becomes non-existent, right? I'm not hosting you in this new house. This is like everyone's on equal footing.
Yeah.
We're all which that part excites me.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm seeing this stove and it looks fucking terrible. Even this house is beautiful. I'm like, what can I do with this guy?
Yeah, what are we gonna do with this?
That's the only downside. Everything's beautiful in this place. The stove is whack. But there's an outdoor barbecue, so
if we
fine.
can find a stove with a pool and then just go there,
Fill the Yeti with Wagyu.
But I like the idea of please. I'm gonna pre-order. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I just love the idea.
He's like, I'm not hosting, but
I got the
meat.
Pursuit Farms Wagyu A5 coming for sure. But the idea of everyone being on equal footing in a non-comfortable zone, it keeps everybody a little bit on edge, but we'll be meditating to kind of
it's neutral ground.
It's neutral ground.
That's a cool concept, actually.
Yeah, that's something I haven't done in a long time in a work front. The only taste I have of that is going to Ryan Lewis's Peshastin studio out in the middle of Washington State, where we brought Warner Chappell. He basically co-hosted a Warner Chappell writing camp a few years back, where I think it was 8 people a week for 4 weeks.
Wow, intense.
Yeah, and it was like 3 rooms working, 3 people in a room. I think 2 people were in one room, and then like with an engineer in each room, and then kind of Ryan and I bouncing back and forth in every room, just making sure things were going. Like Ryan was leading; it's his home; he's clearly hosting. But I was there to check in on the engineering front and like offer some assistance. But I was not comfortable. The coffee wasn't good. Like all the things that I need to focus and work at my full potential were not there. And it was so much fun. Like so much. I made a song that. Definitely the best song I've ever written and produced to date that'll never come out. Like no one will ever hear it, but it's my favorite song I've ever made was under those circumstances. And so I'm actually now reflecting on that. I haven't thought about that in years, but thinking about that moment, I know that I'm going to show up for that retreat and something's going to come out of it, and that's exciting.
People are already saying yes to next year.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting
next year.
Well, whenever it is,
Summer, bro. This is winter retreat.
Yeah, okay. I'm down with that. I'm down with that.
Let's do it.
We just have to de-COVIDify it, but it
rapid test. Come on, they're coming.
Yeah, as a
there's something to this retreat thing still. This thing about doing days together. Like breakfast is at 9.
Yeah.
Dinner's at 6.
Don't miss it.
Like we're all doing things. I think it's the coordination piece amongst a group who aren't maybe normally coordinated at that level that gives satisfies some primal need for this village existence. This sort of the way things have been.
Like a psychological fusion.
Yeah. The convergence of this sort of clockwork of, that sort of coordinated lifestyle.
Very much my experience with the TV work I used to do. A couple of times a year we get together with these people and work really long hours, get up at 8, you're working at 9, you finish at maybe 12 or 1.
Yeah, and making records is sort of like this.
Drinks, and then you do it, and it's the same. Yeah. Lunches at whatever, dinners at whatever, showtime is whatever, and there's bonds there that are really deep,
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
I think it just supports the kind of social cohesion that is sort of at the center of our project.
Yeah. That again, that tension between sort of social cohesion and individual sort of empowerment or
individual freedom.
Unlocking. Not less freedom, but more sort of unlocking people's potential individually.
But that's inevitable, isn't it? Like that's what we all strive to do internally, right? So that can't go away, right? In a circumstance like this,
I think a lot of people don't quite feel they have permission to really unlock, or are thinking about it in those terms. And we had someone, one of our threads or DMs this week, Spider, mentioned something about sort of having been feeling like they were, over the last 8 or 10 years, that they were just kind of working hard but not progressing. I can't remember which thread it was.
Yeah.
But it sort of landed with me. I was like, yeah, I know that feeling of like, I'm putting a lot of effort in here, but I'm clearly not putting it in the right place, or I'm not focusing on the right things. And
or maybe you were just unlucky.
yeah, it could be that too. I was in the wrong place, and all sorts of stuff. But
this is, we're talking about the tension between social coordination, like coordinated activity or behavior, and sort of the freedom to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
In a day-to-day lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think the potential question, so if somebody is working hard, they've got a powerful engine, but the roads are all fucked up.
Yes.
Or they're going in circles.
Yeah.
The reason they're doing that is that, the tension, that same tension applied to that scenario is like they're not engaging with themselves for negative social reasons or underlying social reasons. And, but I think about like courage. One of the pieces of courage is like social fortification.
Yeah.
Gives you an extra bit of courage, like knowing you've got people at your back will give you extra risk-taking capacity.
Yeah.
So there is some balance to be struck between, like social coordination and, pure independence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. I love that.
I mean, what is independence if you don't have a group to share it with? You're just going to sit alone and isolate? And what's the benefit of being so individualistic if you can't share it with a group of any sort? I don't know how that works in there. It just doesn't seem like a fun place to be.
I think freedom in a way is an aspect of self-actualization, and I would say for almost everyone, you need other people to grow that, to be self-actualized and grow the sort of degree of freedom that you have.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
see what I mean? You can't claim it for yourself.
You can't like go after it for yourself.
That's been my experience in the last year with you guys.
Some coordination.
Very much.
I've sensed it, and you've blossomed since.
Yeah. It's
You're not even there yet.
Yeah. We talked about it today.
Yeah.
It's deliberate, and it's scary, and it's. I didn't even have language for it before we started on this Project Spider.
I like seeing you like really engaged.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I'm way more fun when I'm engaged than when I'm up my own ass. That's clear. For me too, it's the same.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of feels similar to, I think one episode a few ago, you brought up the idea of like the comedian and their audience. Like, how do you develop your craft as a comedian if you don't have an audience to share it with? It's impossible. It's like, I'm so funny, I make myself laugh in the mirror, and then I cry myself to sleep because I'm alone and I'm a comedian. Like, it just doesn't equate to anything.
It just doesn't happen.
It just, it's just total annihilation.
It's a social art
Thanks,
form.
Christopher Nolan.
It's a social art form.
Damn, Tenet drops are real today.
I just gotta watch it.
Yeah.
Maybe this weekend.
Don't look at yourself. If you see yourself, don't look at yourself.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've been following that for a long time.
Same. I know.
Avoiding mirrors most of my adult life. Yeah.
I put the world's smallest mirror in my bedroom, my bathroom, that you can't even see your face in. You have to lean down. But then I got a floor length mirror for other people that's outside, just like some other people. It's just like, no, I'm sorry.
Michael, what you got? You're just doing mouthwash over there?
Yeah, drinking coffee. Few things. So you asked me, what I've learned, but also continuing on the thread of what a retreat means. I guess for me, I had actually at my last company hosted a annual design summit for 2 years in a row. Kind of took it over when someone had left the company. I thought there was a lot of value in it and initiated the project to bring it back because I just saw the whole team light up in unison, and it was a rare, actually not even just rare, it didn't happen in any other context. The only other time we saw a whole team was via a, Zoom meeting and everyone wasn't lit up the same, right? Getting everyone in the room. We had a 30-something person team of researchers and designers, and so we had it was 3 days initially, and then we expanded it to a week, and then every day there were sessions throughout the day. So with clear focuses on individual things, and eventually it expanded into you could even choose a track really and just go through the day. So it was a really rewarding experience for me, who gets a lot of joy at setting up these sort of world building, as you called it, setting up these worlds and just seeing the value that was brought to the team, these new ideas and such. I found that it, in terms of the flaws of it, I think oftentimes it would be a lot of high level stuff that would never translate back down to the 9 to 5 workday. But at the same time, I think there's these unquantifiable bits that, or even unqualifiable bits that happen when you're just with a group. And I think you guys were touching on that really well. So yeah, that was my big experience with it. And then my very first job I ran, it was a day-long sort of, these were very education focused. It's an area that I'm trying to lean into more this year, but it was an education focused, full day long sharing of knowledge about what's coming up, what's on the horizon, what are, from our individual vantage points, what are we seeing, what are we thinking, and being able to write that down, present it, get feedback, discuss it after. Those things were really valuable. It allowed everyone to be their individual selves, have time, leading up to this, having time to really flesh out their own ideas, then share that with the team. And it was, there's a lot of value in that. Even just, like I talk about journaling, there's a value in just sitting down and making a presentation about a concept or design object or whatever, writing it down, learning how to present that and organize the information and sharing that and getting feedback. So those are some of my sort of retreat-based things. There's also fun mixed in there. There was just fun moments or after dinner drinks or events or going to museums, things like that.
Do you think we should have drinks at the desert?
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna.
Yeah, not all day.
Yeah. All right, we meditate, then we have drinks.
Yeah.
I just remembered I attended one day of a 3-day retreat in the desert this time last year with a filmmakers team.
Oh yeah.
And it was essentially a retreat for the production company and people who were signed deals and were doing projects in development or whatever. All descended on one place, and I brought PMCs for one of the presenters, some big old PMCs, and sat in on the day, did the dinner, sort of participated, and it was clear, when we say retreat, we're saying, well, what retreat from what, right? So from the rhythm of normal everyday life, right? You're going to retreat from that, take a break from that, and it was clear that these people were doing that. But there was a schedule, there was coordination, and there were different speakers. And there was opportunity for sort of formal presentation and Q&A, and also sort of, unmediated social interactions. And I'm just sort of recounting my experience of it or my read on it while I was there, just to see if there's any juice in it. But
I remember you being really excited when we were in touch, when you were out there, you were really psyched by it.
Yeah, it was really cool. People that really care about things, creative people who are, what it takes to make TV shows and podcasts and movies and, all this stuff. It's you create this stuff and then how do you get it to the viewer? And because this filmmaker has like such an interesting way of working with editors and composer, it's like they sort of work like a band. It struck me when I met them and, first came in to try to help out. It was very unique dynamic, and it felt like, again, that engagement, like, let's get everybody together. Let's, rally around these ideas, these values we all share, and let's help each other bring out the most in each other's projects. And it's actually, come to think of it, a very similar vibe to what we're doing and what we're talking about doing in general.
That trip with Ryan, like at the end of either the day or the week, like we would just bump the records in the main room on the giant PMC QB1s, man. We just bump them, like who had the hottest record that day, and when no one that wasn't said, but like everyone would freak out over a record at the end of the day, but like that's the one, like that was tight. Y'all did that, that's cool. And I just like that's what it was about. No, there were no shitty records. No one was putting anybody down. It was just like that's tight. Finish that one. Like why don't I hop on that? Like one of the artists would be like, yo, I'm gonna hop on that verse on that one. And like by the end of the day, you have a feature. You have a song with 3 features, and it's a huge collab. And the chorus got better, and like everything got better because everyone wanted to jump on it. Like, yo, is it cool if I get on this one? Like, nah, this one's done. Like everyone's honest, but they're trying to, up each other. And like that was a moment. It was only fun. There was no stress. There was no competition. Like it was just everyone brings their point of view, and then we bring it together and talk about what's dope. And the A&R from Warner would show up, and she'd be like, yo, I bet this one will be sick for Demi Lovato. It's like, oh, well, I know so-and-so's working with so-and-so. Let's get them there. Maybe they'll change the production a little bit, but just the wheels start turning of what can happen.
That's energy.
That's energy, exactly. And just, I wonder what will come from our.
We're going to the desert to find energy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true LA person.
Bring your crystals.
We're going to the desert to find energy.
This will be a crystal-free zone.
Episode title.
Crystal-free zone.
We're bringing energy to the desert too. We're not going hunting for it.
No, definitely. Wagyu and energy.
Yeah. Maybe some wine.
Oh, I got plenty to bring. I'm sure you do too.
My notes are a mess.
Yeah. I'm tired.
I'm just looking.
I'm looking at y'all to.
There's so much weird stuff in here, and I don't remember punching it in.
I'm grieving, so.
Oh boy. Oh child.
Aw.
You're good, Jon. You're good.
I lost in tennis today. I never lose in tennis, and I lost today. It was a good match.
Was it like the Royal Tenenbaums? Were you like missing a shoe and a sock by the end of it?
Well, my
just
hand
like crying.
Well, it started out because my hand has a hole in it from an oyster shucker, so I was playing one-handed, so the backhand was non-existent. So anytime Nathaniel hit the backhand, I was just like, whatever, just let it go. And he definitely took advantage of that. But
half the man today.
Yeah. But I lost 6-4 in the set. And so it wasn't terrible
with one hand.
With one hand,
yeah.
But it was a loss, and I loved it. I just wanted to lean into that today. Like
take the L,
and I hate losing. And again, like that night last week, playing chess with Ryan, he beat me 5 times in a row. I just love losing. I'm just like trying to get okay. I was listening to, I think it was a man on Tim Ferriss's podcast, probably still the most recent. He hasn't put one out in a bit. And he's an Olympic athlete trainer. He trained Pete Sampras, I want to say, and like a bunch of other pro athletes. And he was like, I just tell people to write in their journal a story, like a news story. And his example, I think for Pete or someone was, I love my backhand. I love it. It's just like no effort. Because the backhand's the hardest thing in tennis. You got to learn how to play you got to become ambidextrous to be the master of the backhand, right? So you just write it down. I love it. Like, I love losing. I love compression. Like all these things that I say I don't like I love them because they're part of it. The one that trips me up is like, I don't love anger. Spider and I have gotten in like long form debates about how anger is a necessary emotion to feel. And I think I can do without it. I think I can recognize it, refer to it as frustration, and get over it really fast. But by default, it's one of the main emotions that occur. But I would say that I don't love anger. Like, I don't want to lean into that. I'd like to visualize it, understand it, accept it, and then move on from it as fast as possible would be the mode of that acceptance. But As far as compression, I love it. I just don't do it, but I love it.
Is that Jim Lior or Lower?
Yeah,
Lower.
that guy.
Lower,
Yeah. Thank
Is
you.
that how you pronounce that?
I don't know, but that guy, yes.
On mental toughness?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really, I mean, he really got the best out of some of the best athletes. Like, he just name drops, like, obviously, like big winners and athletes that stories are written about, that had to write their own stories to get to the place where they can write it, for people can write stories about them. And like understanding their weaknesses and him communicating, like training with monitoring happening, right? So you're monitoring like neurosystems, and you're trying to get a dialogue out of them. You're trying to get, he was explaining how he would try to get the fundamental truth out of their reaction to any bad move they'd make. Like if they thought they sucked, why did they suck? And like try to connect to the brain and really know the truth. And you have to become really intimate with these people he's explaining to get the best out of them, because they can't hide their frustration. But I want to know what's causing that frustration, and that's how we fix the problem at a really deep level. And I'm like, how do you do that with yourself? Like that's, you meditate, you become mindful, there's these practices, and he's integrating that into athletics.
Or you understand just how complicated. I mean, the combination of the two things we've been, the Lisa Feldman Barrett and the Andrew Huberman stuff that I've been listening to, like when you talk about anger, it's like my understanding of anger right now is changing a lot. Like I don't know what to say about it today. You know, I don't have a position on it because I don't think I understand it the way I did. I don't have my old understanding, and I haven't integrated the new one, but I know that what I had was wrong.
Oh, I look forward to this.
But I mean, I don't know that I'll know it next week either, or even in 3 months. But you know, the ideas that I'm learning from them, based in science, about how emotions are made and what's really going on, and how, like, I'm looking at my kids differently. I'm looking at situations and the prediction machine stuff that we're learning about. You know, there's so much stuff to it that you know, like you say, the Plato's thing of sort of, you know, this out of control animal in the brain that sort of reason that pulls it back, you know, the urge to fight or to have sex or whatever, that, you know, you have this reasonable brain that makes reasoned choices, and the way they're just unpacking that and finding that it doesn't work like that.
Well, it doesn't work as simple as that, but without the two, we wouldn't be human.
They're still
that was the
completely
point.
They're still useful concepts.
Yeah.
But I guess
there are poorly reasoned ideas and well-reasoned ideas.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, reason is a thing.
Yes. But anyhow, all that to say that my understanding of all these things is changing a lot.
Coming back from Mini Kebab with food today, I was listening to the podcast on Lex Friedman with Lisa, and the last bit I was listening to was about how we really, like, she actually doesn't believe at this moment in science, the way things are budgeted, money's allocated, the view of the world of top scientists, that we will ever figure out how the brain actually works. Like, not like, well, what causes, what synapses occur before a decision is made? Like, why do we feel a certain way? Like, that might never be known if science goes the way it's going at the moment. She's just not optimistic about that. And because it's so dynamic, you find out one bit and then it just doesn't repeat itself on this side when you try it again with a different emotion. It's way too dynamic. And that's fascinating. It's like watching a Nolan film. Like, you're not going to really figure it out. You'll figure out bits, and then another thing will come in that you can interpret another way. And it's like, oh, okay, like back to square one. It's just this infinite loop. And that's exciting. I would still like to know where emotions come from.
Oh, sure.
Are people more optimistic about us creating a thing, a synthesized thing like AI that functions like a human without us knowing how, or us knowing how? Which are we more optimistic
Different
about?
people will answer that differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's split in that community.
I've definitely been thinking about exactly that question in the last week.
Yeah. I wish I knew people's names better, because a lot of AI or neuroscientists that also cross-pollinate into the AI world and community and development, most of the neuroscientists don't believe that it's even possible to have a human clone as an AI in our lifetime.
Yeah, a humanoid AI.
Humanoid, yeah. Versus the cyborg concept of enhancement, artificial enhancement
of a human,
like in collaboration with. What are you going to say?
No,
sorry.
It's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, same.
I find it incredibly. It's the thing, sort of creatively, that I'm the most excited about right now.
Yeah, of course.
I just feel the more I learn about the brain, the more sort of the easier it is to accept.
Yes.
Everything. Behavior, everybody,
which is
everything.
Which is how
yourself.
It gives you more empathy for the stuff we can control and can't control and the mechanisms. You don't,
It helps you understand the illusory nature of our sense of control.
You don't get angry because a door doesn't go up and down. It swings on its hinges this way. It just does what it does. And you know, and I think when you realize that some things in our makeup are like that, we move on this axis. We can't move this way at this time. So I'm having the same sort of, I'm moving through it in a similar way to you, Spider. I mean, we're talking about it too, obviously.
Yeah.
But
it's freedom for yourself and the others around you.
Yeah, and it's just exciting. I'm just excited and I love that it's such a complicated space, and that there are such interesting people working in it, and that there's so little known. There's really so little known.
My favorite bit is when you're listening to like one of the smartest, objectively one of the smartest humans alive talking about this subject. And most of the time when a question is asked, like say Joe Rogan's asking or Tim Ferriss or Lex Friedman's asking these questions, and the response is, we really don't know, but here's a little bit of what we know. And it's like, it starts off, it's my favorite. When I get asked something, my favorite response is, I don't know, tell me. Or I know this amount, but it's not really sorted. Like it feels so good to not know. I don't, It also feels great when you know things, but to be like the life of the party person that's just such a know-it-all, and just like the certainty is so... Oh, it's so fucking gross and potent. It's like the stock Axe cologne, and you're like, ugh, you know that? You don't know shit.
It's even got a smell for you.
Yeah.
We just want to
it's stanky. Yeah.
Step on the things we know so we can reach for the things we don't.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We're using what we understand all the time to reach. I hope.
Yeah.
That's how I want to live, or what I want for my kids, or, It's really fun at home because Sydney is listening to a lot of the same podcasts now, and it's just like a constant back and forth about things we hear, or things she understood that I didn't understand, or vice versa, or something that we passed on to her mom that she's coming back with an interesting question about, or, Yeah,
it was
great.
cute hearing you. I had like both girls on my back and in the living room, and you and Sid in the kitchen were going over something from some podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
It's fun.
They were like in it. They were like trying to understand something.
Yeah, man,
it's cool.
A lot of it
that's
is...
my world. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, it's a good time right there. Friend over, swinging off. My kid's swinging off his head, and we have a glass of wine, and we're chopping it up in the kitchen. That's
it.
We won.
That's it.
We won that day.
Yeah. Man, what a great way to look at that.
Yeah.
Fire going.
Yeah, it's just great. We've talked about what you're learning, Michael, and we've sort of kicked around some stuff. Given that we had our sort of year-end wrap-up, and then we went straight into... That was on my birthday. And then we took a couple of weeks off, and then we went straight into Ryan. And now the sort of New Year, we're past the New Year energy and the New Year sort of like feeling. What are people working on? What's between here and when we next talk? What are we working on?
Secret shit, bro. Come on.
Yeah.
You can't talk about this stuff. Damn.
Because that's how we roll here.
I'm all wrapped up in secret shit right now.
I'll talk.
Yeah.
I've picked up my first management client, who's a good friend. I can't say the name yet because there's potentially a transition from old manager to new management. But we've been chatting regularly. I'm kind of coming in on a creative front, talking strategy and helping put together music videos for a project, and that's really exciting. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I said that to him, and he was like, "That's why I want you to manage me." That's what excites me. The story of you not knowing what the fuck you're doing as a manager, managing me is more exciting than a manager that's well known in the industry that, whatever. So that excites me. I'm doing that. I'm having weekly to 2 times a week calls with him and just strategizing. And it's been really, really great. We already had 2 chats this week, and it's like, oh, I didn't even think that could happen. Like, oh, why don't we try this? Oh, wow, me do that? Wow, that's wild. Okay. Like just different avenues on how this person can exist in the industry while having a 6-month-year-old, and trying to be dad, and during a pandemic and like all the
constraints,
all the constraints and obstacles at play, and how to make you the same amount of money or more, like how to do this and make sure nothing changes, but you have more time to be dad, and like all these considerations. And so that's really cool.
Sounds like a lot of fun, honestly.
I'm very interested in this. I mean, management in general has been on our mind for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know maybe the answer, but you've described all the things you're not, so you don't know what the fuck you're doing, as you said, which is, whatever. I'll give you a pass on that. But why is he working with you? What is it that you're describing a sense of possibility or almost a kind of a useful naivety that he's in about what's possible or not, or what's normal or not.
I am an easy access point to a different demographic for him.
Yes. Cool.
And it is I'm a place of trust for him. Like we have a developed friendship for a couple of years now. I'm a fan of this person, so I hear the works differently than someone else would. I don't have to sell this person. It's like I don't have to sell PMCs when I'm talking to someone else.
It's like you're an ambassador for him.
Yeah, exactly.
You clearly believe in him.
It's without a doubt. Like, and I can't imagine getting on the phone negotiating a rate for anybody, but for him, I'm going to get max rate. I just know what he's worth and how to value him. So that's why that would, I think, be his response.
That's great.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We're going to ask him too, though.
Sure,
we're going to compare notes. We'll play this.
I mean, he should be a guest.
See what he thinks about.
He should be a guest by far. He's doing podcasts right now, and he's a hit on podcasts.
Well, I need to meet him.
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, I want to contribute my own answer, but I have a question first, which is, what about this challenge are you most excited about?
The fact that it's a whole nother world to me. It's a whole nother language to speak with regards to I'm going to be sending emails out to people, A&Rs, managers, producers, people that I work with in a completely different format of text. I'm going to be selling this musician, right? Or being an ambassador to this musician. This is just it's just way out of the comfort zone, but it's within the comfort zone of the music industry, right? I'm not pivoting to a tech business or something where I'm like, I have to learn algorithmic, whatever. I don't have to learn math to do this. Like
you have the muscles, but you're going to just flex different groups.
And as Ryan put it perfectly, me from another angle. It just feels like, and that's what I like. I wanted to drop all 4 mics last week when he said that, because I've been trying to, like, we also talked about, like, he just distilled down so many things that we talk about for hours in like five words. And like, that's what I'm trying to get at, is me from different angles. Like chefing, cooking to me is me from another angle. Like it's still my expression, but I'm never going to do that professionally. I never want to exchange currency for that. So what makes me most excited is something new. That's what we all want anyway. We want the another part of it, which is selfish, is like get to talk to him more. There's an excuse to reach out more regularly. That part excites me.
Commitments with someone you love.
Yep. That's how it is with my manager, with Nathaniel. I mean, we play tennis 3 times a week. I talk to him almost every day. I love that part of it. And not every client wants that relationship with their manager. They just want them to get them work and whatever. It's like an accountant. It's like it's different for me with everybody in my life.
So filling the day with conversations with people that energize you.
Yeah, fair. There you go. Yeah. I mean, dude, this person inspires me, and he's just so musically lovely and lovely. Yeah. Just like the best wine taste, man.
Can't wait to meet him.
Yeah. So that's my answer.
Generous and brilliant. I like this guy a lot.
Yeah.
Michael.
Hey,
what's the next minute? I mean, you're on the road, so that kind of qualifies things. But what, in terms of sort of what's in your sights work-wise this week between here and when we talk next week? What's the puzzle you're solving? What's the work you got to do?
Yeah, it's a few things. Well, one, I'm getting to stay in I hate calling Nathan a client, but he's a friend as well. But just deepening that relationship that we have, getting to see him from another angle, and him seeing me from another angle. I mean, we had planned this trip over a year ago. It was supposed to happen. It was right before COVID. Actually, we didn't have this trip because of COVID. It actually the lockdown had just started the week I was supposed to go. And we're like, wait, do we have to cancel this? Like, airplanes are shutting down? Like, what?
Yeah, I remember that.
So that I'm really excited about. I mean, he always fascinates me in terms of his process and his passion for what he does and the way he looks at work from a business mindset as well as an efficiency mindset. We are kindred spirits in many ways. So I just love seeing his workflows and getting to know the person behind, the great thing about what I do is that the branding workshops allow for me to understand people better, but then seeing them operate, it's a whole nother level. It's more than just what they say, and it's more than what I extract. It's a whole different type of observation. So there's that. And then very similar to Jon, like Spider and I have something in the works. My buddy Adam and I have something in the works. And I just spoke to my buddy Andrew today, who's a member of Art Club, which I've mentioned before. He's someone that during those sessions, we're just going back and forth about design and philosophy. And he's someone that I'm excited about the idea of working together with. And I haven't been since I worked with my buddy Ross on Status early days. So I called him today and was like, hey, let's explore this idea for a second. I'd like to work with you and let's figure out how that might work and look and see if it's beneficial for both of us and keeping what we have and also evolving it in ways that we want it to be. So literally like just got off the phone with him. So in a week I could be like, yeah, that didn't work. But I'm really hoping, I'm very positive about it. We ended the call with him saying, I really want to do this. I just got to go check out my brother's new car because he just got home and I went to visit him. But yeah, I'm very excited to continue that conversation. And really, I guess the overall theme here is just advancing, moving forward on what I've been doing and finding ways to do it. Spider put it so elegantly before, but ways to be around people that I enjoy being around, like, and getting paid as well. And like being able to have a life where I'm literally hanging out with the people that I want to hang out with already, and people finding value from the fruit of our relationship. I mean, that's what we're doing right here. It's really the ideal position, and one that I think for a while I didn't even think was a reality. Not that I thought it wasn't a reality, I just didn't even know that reality existed. So yeah, just furthering that.
Awesome.
What about you?
Spider first. I just realized when I ask this question, I'm going to have to answer it, and I don't have an answer, but I'll work on it. I know you're working on stuff that you don't want to talk about yet.
Yeah.
But what about in principle? Like is the next week big picture in your life or all the details or a bit of both? Or is it just the grind? Is next week the week you clean your apartment top to bottom? Or
No. Yeah, we've been through that. The next couple weeks are a sprint to a new chapter.
Yeah.
And in our year-end wrap-up episode, I said that in the new year, clearer commitments were what I was going to work on, and that's what I'm working on. It's having very clear commitments and lines of responsibility. Simplify my life. As Sam Harris mentioned the other day, that he has fewer tabs open
Yes.
in the browser of his life now, and he thinks it'll probably stay that way. And that's kind of the mode I'm in. I'm trying to have fewer to-do lists, just fewer lists, fewer lines of responsibility and very clear commitments, and space in my life for a space in my life to move at a pace that suits me. That's sort of something that's coming up now. Actually, Jon gave me a very lovely set of whiskey glasses, Japanese whiskey glasses, and they have this sort of delicate feel to them. And the wine glasses we drink from here, not these tonight, but the ones we usually drink from are these Zalto Burgundy glasses. They're very light. They're very light. You hold them, they have this delicate quality. Yeah. And when I interact with these objects, it reminds me to slow down. They have this mindful, meditative influence. And it's a beautiful effect that design can have on your day-to-day life. There's a book that our friend Ebru was reading. She posted it up on stories last week. It was something about like the magic of everyday things or something, written by a Japanese designer. I have it in my cart and on Amazon right now. It's about this very thing. It's about like how the objects and the design shape the sort of quality of your life. So, with that reminder, I'm thinking about how I move through my day and how to do it in a gentler, more effortless, frictionless way. To sort of have certain things on autopilot, like change the sort of character of my autopilot, to suit the pace and to give me the headroom to go hard when I want to go hard and to back off at will.
Body budgeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me, today I was talking with Adam and he was so excited about working, and I knew that he was like in the middle of recording music, and I was like, let's set a time to talk about it and really go in on it fully instead of splitting our time, kind of working on one thing and kind of working on the other, that ability to just be in that space. And so much of that I learned from you guys, to commit fully to the moment. It sounds like.
Well, it's really the only way to be productive. Productivity doesn't happen if you're not mindful of the task at hand, except for when you're in the flow state, which would prove this to be, I think, correct. By the end of the flow state, you're productive because you were in the zone, right? It's like if you watch Soul, that zone scene when it's just like
beautiful.
It's
such a great movie.
Such a great movie,
Spoiler.
Well, not really.
I'm just saying. I haven't watched it.
Yeah.
So
really?
I'm just saying. Look,
it's lovely.
It's lovely. It's the most colorful.
Maybe watch it with the girls. Maybe we just do it. Maybe Saturday. They'll
cool.
I mean,
great.
Absolutely. Like that's such a thing. Love to watch it with children. That sounds great, actually. And I mean, I don't really have much to say on it. It just sounds like the only way for things to actually come out the other end. It's not. There's no real magic. Like you can believe. I believe in magic to a degree, but you're controlling the magic to some degree. Like there's no. It's not just gonna. There's no elves showing up to write your song or to build yourself a table. Like the table has to be built. You have to be mindful of the task at hand, and you have to pause before the task at hand to understand the commitment to the next task. So that's what I mean. I think that's what you're kind of talking about too. Like it's pausing between things. It's moving through life intentionally at different moments, understanding where you're at. And the pauses, like you saying you want to come back. Like when I heard you talk about the Adam story and like, oh, I'm excited about going to work. I actually thought you were about to say this part, which is before you start working, take a moment. Like take a deep breath, go outside before the next task. And like that, I'm so into that practice of separating. Like when it's time to open the car door, open that car door, and you're there at the car door, opening the car door before you drive. And that gets you in the mode of driving your car so you can be safe. You're not looking at your phone. You're not wondering what's happening somewhere else. You're driving your car. Like, you get into a rear end accident because you're looking at your phone. It's like, can't have that. Like, this just happened to someone. And that's because you weren't mindful of where you were at then. And of the task at hand. And driving a heavy piece of machinery, it's one of the most serious things we can all do, right? It's like, that's one of those perfect examples. And work is another one. And just the pivots throughout the day, the moments throughout the day, that's a clear commitment to that thing. And it's the only way things get done.
Yeah,
and
it's managing your attention.
Yeah.
It's just, Absolutely.
Well, I'll say that unfortunately, it isn't the only way things get done. Like, things can be completed, and the whole time you could have been distracted, and eventually you get to the destination, right? It's more so that it's the most... Yeah, I mean, you could be on your phone the whole time and get to a destination. It's just not the optimal way. And I think... I'm not discounting your point saying, oh, no, you should be doing it this other way. I'm saying many people are operating it another way.
Yeah, a lot of people are sleepwalking in one form or another, as we've described it. So
right, but then you didn't pay attention to the thing at hand, so the task wasn't completed just because you arrived at another place. Nothing happened.
Let's say arrival is the task. You know what I mean? You're saying there's more to the task.
I know.
Or there could be more. Rich, Rory, you're about to say something.
No, I often come back to the Starbucks analogy as kind of like real life. And there were how many million cups of coffee served today in Starbucks? I would venture that 0.07% of them were served mindfully. There was a lot of people handing the cup while talking to their colleague on the other side. Yeah, he did this. I don't, whatever. So the work got done. The coffees were served. The people got the coffee. The money was transacted. But we're obviously...
How effective is that?
It's effective if the coffee is sold and the money goes in the till.
But it's effective to the person that was mindful of accepting the cup of coffee, not to the person that made the cup of coffee.
Oh, sure. No, it's not a way to live. Neither Michael or I are recommending it. We're just saying that most people, many people live that way in their work lives. And we're all Spider is trying to engineer a work life that takes its hands off his neck, his creative neck, and lets him breathe. Because when he has the space to breathe, good ideas pop out of his head, and other people benefit, and him too, right?
Yeah.
So we're all aiming for better, but we're all in some way or other not doing our best yet.
But is it? Sorry, one more layer into this. Is it not? Is it not mindful? Because they're not mindful of it? Meaning someone in the exchange is mindful of that occurrence, right? A task can't get done without someone. It's like the tree fall in the woods, right? Like, someone had to be mindful of the task. Like, I'm on my phone, but I need that coffee because I'm 5 minutes late for the subway. I'm going to miss the subway. But like, I'm so mindful that I need that coffee for the subway. But the other person is talking to so-and-so and doesn't realize they're making it, and they're pulling the shot, but they're talking, or something else is happening. Someone is mindful in that circumstance for the coffee to be made in that moment. Like, there has to be.
The job is done. The task is completed. But there's I think we're, if you said to me, how would you like to get to the end of the week and have 30 mastering tasks completed? And I go, that doesn't fire me up. That's not what I live for.
Well, that's a word choice. Yeah, you do live for 30 songs mastered by the end of the week. That's just a word choice.
You want to get the work done, but it's, we're trying to, I'm trying to make your point, which is we're looking to engage mindfully and be present for the work. And I think just what Michael and I are pointing to is a lot of people are working, but they're not as engaged with it as they might, as we might think, as they might want to be.
Yes.
Let's not put our expectations on them as they might want to be.
Yeah.
I know it's becoming increasingly clear to me that part of the work life that I want to build, much like Spider, is that I like to dive deep. When I get on the phone with someone, I want to go there.
Need time.
There's a friend listening, John Roush, today. Send him the link, and he's texting back and forth while we're talking. And we connected the other day, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and phone call. It's like we talked for 2 hours, just went there. We hadn't spoken in a long time. He's moved and you know, my life is changing. We've got the podcast now. He's got some new ideas. Yep. And I want the freedom in my life to go deep with you this morning. Mm-hmm. Like I asked for permission from Ellie to do it, right? Yeah. It was like, I need to take the time with Jon.
Remember what I did with you this morning? Now I'm going to do that with Jon. Is that okay?
Yeah.
It was amazing. I love you. It was amazing.
Yeah. So, you know, I want that permission. I don't want my time with you to be on someone else's clock, a boss or a mastering client who's expecting something. I want a life where my time with you is, I have it to spend and I'm choosing to spend it here. Yeah. Or then on my master, not, I didn't leave enough time in my mastering life to call my friend on the day he needed it. I want, you know, so it's like engineering a life, building it the way that, and that's really sort of my project right now. And I feel like I have a lot of thinking done over the holidays, and now there's like implementation, there's checklists to get through. I feel like with the conversation, because Michael's on the road, Spider's deep in his project, you're in your moment right now, and a couple of projects too. I feel like I've got to be a bit more of a push on the podcast at this moment, like Michael was at another moment, like Spider was at another moment, like you were at the conversation part or whatever. So it's like at different points we're each going to sort of pick up the reins for a minute and push or pull or do what you do with reins. What do? You shake them and the horse moves? I don't know. Whatever.
You pull, you yank them.
Yeah. You know, I've only ridden a horse twice in my life. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of, I've got a lot of small
I find that
work
very hard to believe.
What?
Only twice?
A horse, I think only twice. Yeah.
I've never, so.
On a beach once and maybe 3 times, yeah. Yeah, not a natural horse rider.
Not a frequent horse rider.
No, not a natural sportsman.
I'm excited to see how the implementation takes shape.
Yeah, it's hard.
And how
it's hard.
It is and it isn't. Like it is until it isn't. Like at some point it just happens. Right?
I've got to push through some infrastructural stuff that we've talked about, which is hard. Bringing a new assistant online in COVID, trying to figure out how to do that, and just other stuff I've got to set up. But I'm pretty clear about what I'm about. So it's just kind of the work of doing it, and you know, the difference. The difference for me is that, you know, when you guys work, there's work and there's not work. For me, there's work and all the other spaces are filled with family. Yeah. So if I want to meditate like I've been doing, trying to do an hour a day, you've got to carve it out. You got to say, it's like I'm literally closing the door, or today I'm charging the car and sitting in the car, meditating while I charge the car.
Yeah, I've done that. I love that.
You're like doing both.
Yeah.
And
it's very productive use of time.
Yeah. But it's been a good start of the year because of the Andrew Huberman stuff. Sienna and I have been trying to catch sunrises and sunsets every day, and we've got all of them. I've missed a couple, she's missed a couple, but it's really been interesting, like what it's doing to our bodies and our brains and how we sleep and how we wake. And doing a bunch more exercise, that hike that I keep sending you pictures of to entice you.
Oh, I think about it every day.
To come up with me, and trying to learn more, trying to read more, trying to be more deliberate in my sort of quest to know things and maybe share them.
You'll share.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on. It's a busy week ahead.
Could I ask why you said maybe share them?
Yeah.
Well, it goes to the heart of what I need to understand them, I guess. I need to find a way. I need to learn them, understand them, integrate them, and then find ways that I can make them useful for people. You know, what isn't useful is standing on the street corner saying what I've learned about the brain, repeating it on loop, in the hopes that someone who goes by is interested.
I prefer that on the streets of LA.
Yeah, well, yeah. But so finding, you know, doing what we're trying to do, which is bring as much of ourselves to the table as possible in as useful a way as possible. So maybe in that I don't know when or how things will go in and come back out. I don't, you know, if you had asked me some of the things I've talked about at this table, if you'd asked me, what do you think of this experience when it happened? I would say it sucked. And do you imagine that you'll be in LA someday with 4 friends talking on mic about it and making it useful to someone? Like, I would not have imagined that. So I don't know when things will come out of my head or what it is that you'll say that will bring something to mind.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the maybe. Not because I'm hesitant. I'm all in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all in.
Great clarification there.
Yeah. So what do you think, guys? Are we done?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Well, give Nathan our love in Nashville. And
absolutely.
we will talk to you in a week and see if we all achieved what we said we would do. Have we just set intentions for the week?
I've already decided not to do it.
I mean, I've already done it today and Monday, and I'm going to do it again.
All right.
So I'm in.
Okay. Nice.
Committed. Clear.
All right, my dudes. This was great. Thank you. And we
Night,
will
guys.
talk to you all soon.
Good night, everybody.
Peace.
Conversations is produced and mixed by Dylan Seals. The Conversations theme was performed and recorded by the Hazelrigg brothers.